Hi everyone, my name is Maya Fortune from Tribeca New Music, and I'm here with Zach Gulaboff Davis, one of our Young Composer Competition winners. Hi, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Maya. Thanks so much for having me. Real excited.
Yeah, we're really excited to see you on November 2nd with the Bergamont Quartet at the DiMenna Center at 7 p.m. And the Bergamont Quartet is performing one of your pieces. So, can you tell us a little bit about your journey as a composer and how you got here?
Absolutely. Well, it's quite cool that both my journey as a composer and this composition are inextricably linked through a composer collective I'll talk a little bit more about later called Consonance. But I've been composing since college. Actually, I was in a orchestra playing keyboard percussion, and the timpanist retired. And so my first job was playing Shostakovich 5, especially that last movement where you're just wailing away on the timpani. Boom, 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 boom. And that was honestly my first introduction to any music essentially written out of the common practice period. So for me, it was just completely eye-opening, completely transformative, and just seeing all the different possibilities, whether it be something more accessible like cinematic music or 12-tone music or honestly anything in between. And I never looked back at that point. So I ended up doing an undergrad degree in both piano and composition. Went on, did a master's in composition and then a doctorate. And I guess the rest has been history when it comes to my compositional trajectory.
Wow, that's super cool. And it's interesting because you're a pianist and a conductor and a composer. Like, how do you feel? It's so interesting that you started in percussion, which is a very physical, a physical instrument. How do you translate that to now being a conductor as well?
Well, I think overall, it's just really nice having such a hands-on experience, whether it's playing percussion in an orchestra and just seeing how the entire ensemble interacts. You learn so much more from any compositional lesson ever. And I'm a composition teacher, so I might be underselling our craft here, but you learn so much more just watching members of an ensemble interact, or say the visceral experience of playing something at the piano and realizing how intricately patterns are woven together, say in the music of Chopin, and how that could be imbued into 21st century compositional techniques. Or say in my somewhat limited experience as a conductor, just watching how the entire ensemble can function as a cohesive whole, or how you can excerpt small configurations of the ensemble to create different sounds. So just taking all of that tapestry of experiences, I think informs me as a composer more than literally anything else.
Wow.
Great question.
That's really super. The other question I wanted to ask that you mentioned is that you've gone from, BA, MM, and a doctorate. I think a big question for musician is should I pursue higher education? Should I focus on gigging? Why did you choose this path? And how has it helped you become, who you are today?
For me at the time, it made the most sense. I got to study with some amazing mentors, including living composer who I really look up to, Kevin Putz. Recently had his opera premiered at the Met. Just absolutely love his compositional language and sense of orchestration and everything. So that, coupled with just the sheer abundance of amazing players, whether they be conductors or pianists or anything in between, and just having that rich experience at your fingertips, but also hopefully being able to contribute to it in different ways, was really meaningful. Yet again, it's not, say, the only path. I work with some young composer. I say, well, hey, it might be better to take a couple gap years and move to the city and just meet as many ensembles and work with as many people as you can, or pick out a composer who you admire and see if they'll take you on for private lessons for a year. So while my path is one, I wouldn't, necessarily recommend it for everyone. And it's definitely not the only way to get there. Because I think sort of the thing we'll touch on most is collaboration is just key for so many things. That's where the Bergamont piece came about. That's going to be on the Tribeca's concert and so many of my other compositions. So
Yeah,
central to everything, I think, is collaboration.
absolutely. Do you want to talk more about collaboration and then maybe move into how Iridescence was formed?
Sure thing. So just in general, for me as a composer, I've always loved any type of collaboration, whether it's a collaborative back and forth between me and a performer. Obviously, they're going to be the ones that are taking the piece out on stage and actually conveying it to the audience, So while it is a two-way street and there can be pushback both ways, I really do like to take into account sort of their feel for something. I was once writing a violin concerto for a violinist friend of mine, and he insisted that the cadenza was too short. And at the time, I thought that was completely nonsensical. I was like, no, I sketched this all out. I listened to it many times in my finale program, and it sounds just fine. Lo and behold, he was 1000% right. And when I did expand the cadenza before the concert, I think it worked much better. So there's just things like that. But then there's also sort of larger scale things. If you form long lasting collaborations with a performer or ensemble, there's someone that can both champion your music and get your name out there, but you're also someone who can hopefully help them along, either by composing music for them, more sort of rudimentary things like, say, applying for grants or whatever else it is. It's just such a symbiotic landscape out there. You want to not only uplift other performers and ensembles, but also fellow composers.
It's almost like collaboration is so important, but it moves into another bigger sense of community and how important it is
Absolutely.
to uplift everyone, work with people that you like to work with, and continue those relationships. And that's really where the arts industry needs to focus on, is that community facet.
Could not agree more.
All right, I interrupted you. Tell me about Iridescence.
No, really great stuff. But so Iridescence, again, came about just from sort of my early notions of collaboration, actually. When I was a doctoral student at Peabody in Baltimore, a group of about, it was 6 or so composers at the time, decided it'd be fun just to sort of use an unused classroom space to listen to music every week, just random things that we were listening to, whatever, just a time to talk over new music, sort of in a less structured and academic setting. One thing led to another. We were doing that for about a year, and we decided it might be fun to put on a concert. At the time, it was a very sort of haphazard thing. We just threw together, oh, you're writing this, I'm writing this, we'll find a few performers and do something. That went off decently well, and before we knew it, we decided we wanted to form a composer collective where together we worked with ensembles, put on concerts, released albums, that type of stuff. And as a result, the Consonance Collective, we abbreviated CNSNC, was born.
Wow.
One of our first big projects that sort of cemented our direction was actually a collaboration with the Bergamont Quartet, who were students at Peabody as well at the time. I didn't know them at the time. It was a huge school, but another one of our members, Suna Kim, put us in touch with them. And after a bunch of discussions in terms of where we wanted the project to go and whatnot, we settled on an album of 5 compositions for string quartet, all highlighting various images from space generated by the Hubble Space Telescope.
That's
These are all publicly available images, realizations, computer sort of simulations of star systems and all this, just gorgeous stuff. And we were able to collaborate with the Space Telescope and Science Institute in Baltimore to do that. It's an affiliate of NASA. So it was really cool to sort of do this cross-disciplinary thing with the scientific organization, have access to their footage, and then work with the phenomenal Bergamont Quartet. So that's where my piece was born from, just looking through these images, not really any grand scope or scheme beyond that, but just saying, here's a really cool sort of progression of images from these otherworldly objects. How can I string this into a narrative that makes sense compositionally? Something starting soft, growing to climax, and then dying back down, sort of in a similar fashion to what composers have done forever. And working through that piece and getting to hear my colleagues' music from Consonance in that, not only just excited me as a composer, but also I think excited us as a group. And since then, we've done multiple collaborations. We've done one with the Smithsonian Institute for undersea exploration. We recently finished a collaboration with the Black Box Ensemble, also based in NYC, with the Cape May Audubon Society down in New Jersey, where we're highlighting issues related to Audubon Conservation. Then we have an upcoming project with Percussion Quartet. But again, long story short, this composition was completely born through a collaboration.
Wow. That's so cool. I think that it's awesome to just also bring together science and music as well, because that's really cool. So when you were looking at these images and you thought about it in sort of the composition style of the soft and then the climax and then ending, how did you relate that to what you were seeing visually?
Sure, great question. I think the first thing I was looking at, well, again, just sort of putting together a narrative of images that I thought, at least for me, captured the scope of what I wanted to convey. So I almost saw it as some type of pre-compositional ritual. Say some composers might just sketch out a basic outline of where they want the piece to go, maybe some verbal indicators of adjectives, whatever, of where they want it to end or how they want it to start and stuff like that. And I almost initially viewed those images and realizations as something in that vein, as just sort of a initial kernel of inspiration, with which to build the piece on. Strangely enough, as the piece progressed along, I did realize that both the video and the sonic, the music component of it, were inextricably linked. So our final project actually ended up being music videos that had these images and realizations juxtaposed with the string quartet play. So we'd see images of star systems flashing in and out of the quartets playing. And so they really became a much more integral component than I even realized. I just thought they were going to be an inspiration essentially for the composition itself, but not necessarily something that would exist beyond that, other than the program notes, I guess.
Right. They became the product.
Yes.
And how was working with Bergamont? Did they give you a lot of input as a string quartet? How was that relationship?
They're the best. They're musicians of just the absolute highest caliber, just kindest, humblest people out there, phenomenal in all aspects. And the composition I wrote for them, Iridescence, definitely pushed some boundaries in terms of playability and just overall stamina. It's like a 15-minute long piece that doesn't really stop. There's a lot of kind of aleatoric elements to it, things that take a lot of work to put together. And they offered a lot of comments, but comments that I would say only sort of uplifted the piece in a similar vein to what I was going for. Say if I wanted a specific sound, well, how could we create this sound but make it sound more idiomatic on the instrument, but still maintain exactly what you're going for and that type of stuff. And I think that's the core of collaboration, where both parties sort of respect the other's wishes, yet at the same time seek to uplift them.
Yeah, definitely.
Could not have been better.
That's wonderful. Yeah, they are so amazing. So, not to put you on the spot, but are there any specific string techniques that you kind of learned about during this process that ended up aiding the composition?
Absolutely. One that I sort of had some inkling of, but talking with them was really able to work out, was in the sort of main climactic section of the piece. It's about a little bit over 2/3 of the way through. All the instruments have sort of a sustained pedal tone. Say in the cello, it's in the C, violin, it's a G, whatever. And yet at the same time, they're playing all types of aleatoric figures above that. So it feels both like a grounded arrival point because they're able to sustain this open string, yet at the same time, they're doing all these fiendishly difficult figurations, harmonics, whatever, in the upper register. So to me, it makes it sound like it's at least a string orchestra playing, not just four people.
Yeah.
So that was really cool to get to.
Wow.
I kind of realize that for the first time.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear it in person. I'm so excited.
Same here.
Yeah.
Actually, strangely enough, the piece has never been performed live. It's been recorded. This project came about right before COVID. And then we were doing most of our formative and final planning sort of in the throes of COVID in 2020. And hence the move to doing it as a series of music videos. And then and sort of when the numbers went down a little bit, we seized the opportunity, did a recording project in Brooklyn where it was, if you see the video, it's Bergamont just sitting all around masked with one videographer. And so
Wow.
we really seized the moment there and made it happen when we could. But consequentially, it's never actually been performed live. I
Wow.
believe several of the other compositions in the album have been at this point. So that's really cool to see them take a life beyond that. So this will be both I guess, world premiere and my first time hearing it live other than in the studio.
Wow. That's going to be so interesting for you too. As a composer, you're so comfortable with this piece, but you've never heard it live in person.
Exactly.
That is
Super exciting.
yeah, that is super exciting. So moving on to a question we always ask is, what have you been listening to? What is a playlist that you would recommend us in your brain, and why? So who are a few artists that you're listening to?
Sure thing. So right now, I should preface it with that I'm working on several sets of parts for different compositions. So I always tend in a sort of minimalist or post-minimalist direction at that point. For whatever reason, I find that to be really good music to listen to when working on sort of the final stages of the compositional process. But one composer I go back to time and time again is John Adams, especially his operatic music. I just find it to be incredibly compelling, harmonically colorful, and just really great stuff overall. So I've been listening to Nixon in China quite a bit. So wonderful, wonderful operatic work. And sort of on the other end of things, but kind of in a similar vein, I've been listening to a lot of Radhavara, and especially some of his symphonic works, like his Symphony Number 3 and 7. There's just these gorgeous, expansive works that seem to kind of transcend time and are just impeccable. So definitely recommend both of those, but especially Radhavara if you haven't thoroughly investigated his output yet.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for doing this interview with me. My name's Maya Porter of
Absolutely.
Tribeca New Music. And if you want to listen to Iridescence, it's happening on November 2nd at the DiMenna Center at 7 p.m. Tickets are at tribecanewmusic.org. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Just thanks again so much for having me, Maya, and I'm really looking forward to this concert and getting to hear Bergamot.
Yeah, me too.
Thanks again.